Okay, Perek Chav Gimel, nearing the end, or just the beginning, depends how you look at it. The Darchei Kniyas Hanover, up to those things that will help a person acquire humility, and those things that detract from acquiring humility. So last week what humility is, and now we're going to discuss what does it take to make sure that one integrates humility into his life, and what things keep him away from that. So he starts off by saying that there are two parts to anivus: regilus and hisbonenus. A person doing actions that will make him make it habitual, creating a habit within oneself, and contemplation. So he said, what should a person do to create? What action should he do in order to make himself an anav? One thing is sitting in the. So last week, sitting in places not in the most chashuv place. You sit in the back. When there's a chaver, you walk into a kiddush. You don't have to be the life of the party. The person doesn't have to be the loud one making all the noise. He says his lashon is you hang out the lechas b'soif hachever. You go in the back of the chaver. And little bush big dates. When a person wears more humble, modest clothing, it can be nice clothing, but not. When you walk in the room, everyone looks like, wow, that guy is sharply dressed. You don't have to dress so sharp. It should be nice, it should be mechubed, but it doesn't have to be eye grabbing. That's a way a person creates the habit within himself to become an honor. Then he makes an unbelievable psychological insight into people, and he says that being an honor, being humble, is against the nature. Human nature is, I want to feel that I'm great. I want to feel like I'm better than you. That is just human nature. It's we're wired. So how does a person be oiker that from himself? How does he uproot that from himself? You have to do actions, outside actions. Chitzoni is dika pa'ulas. And that slowly but surely will change a person's nature. But if you're trying to change a nature, you can't just attack that intellectually. Right? There has to be a regilus, actions, again and again and again, and if I act like an anav, then eventually I will become an anav. I can create a second nature. But it's unbelievable you saw it. That even a person might say it's false, it's false. It's not. You hold you the best. But you're gonna walk like this, and you're gonna sit in the back of the shul, and you're gonna, right? That's not being honest with yourself. It's not true. No, I know I'm a bal guy. But I'm doing these actions to engender within myself feelings of humility, of anivus, and that's the first step of trying to incorporate anivus into one's being. The second one is called hisbonenus. Ha hisbonen, he says, contemplation. The person has to contemplate. We said throughout the sefer that when it comes to all Musar, especially Mesillas Yesharim, it's not enough to come and learn the sefer for 20 minutes a day or come to a Shiur once a week and then walk out. The person has to contemplate. Many of the midas that we've seen, the way to acquire them is through contemplation. So a person's just going to absorb the subject matter and not sit and think about what we're doing here, then you will not see the same hatzlacha, the same success. So what's the hisbonenus by anivus? What are we supposed to be contemplating? So he quotes the Mishnah in Perkei Avos. This Mishnah is read at a Levaya. Akavi ben Mahalalo says, Dama ein basa, where does a person come from? A tipus ruch, a putrid drop. Ul'ana tahoylech, where does a person go? Where all of us going? L'malkum offer rima v'saleh, to a place of dirt, of worms. L'fnei ata osli litain din v'cheshvan, who are you going to have to give a din v'cheshvan accounting to? L'fnei malach malchem lachim, HaKadosh Baruch. In front of Hashem, you're going to stand in front of the heavenly court one day. Explains to Mesillas Yesharim, I think about where I came from, right? My humble beginnings. There's a Gemara in Yuma that says that don't give srara, don't give authority to any person who doesn't have a kupa shel shrotzim, doesn't have like a box of shrotzim in their closet. Meaning that a person has to have something, some thought of humility. Where I came from wasn't the best place, and that keeps me humble. A person has to remember where he comes from, and don't think he's so great. And if he comes from the best yichus and he's always the best in school, so he comes from a tipus rucha. So we all come from a tipus rucha. A person must think where he's going to go. Right? All my gewaldige, wonderful talents, right? At the end of the day, where is that going to bring me? Where is that going to lead me to? The grave. A person is going to be, food for the worms eventually. That's the person's going to go. And no matter how great I think I am right now, there's no one that's indispensable. Remember, there was a very chashuv gevir in Melbourne, extremely chashuv, a big tzaddik, and he supported a lot of the Mesillas there. He was very influential in a lot of the places. Not influential, he didn't push his agenda. He gave money and he took a step back. He let the Mesillas run the show, took a step back, but he gave the money, and when there was a need, he would always come in and plug in the holes. And we passed away. We all wondered, how is Melbourne going to go weiter? How this person just kept everything together, and Melbourne went weiter. It's like, there's a indentation on the beach by the water, and the water comes and goes, and eventually it's not there. I mean, there are many people that come and go, and they think, and others think, this institution, this city cannot exist without that person, and it can. And it's not a chisar in the person. It's just where Kadosh Baruch Hu set up the world, that no one is indispensable. That thought also should bring humility to a person. I think that I'm carrying this whole situation. No, I can come and I can go, and in 2 months' time, no one's going to know. Schreck was here for 8 months and he left, chas v'shalom, let's say. In 2 years' time, who is going to remember? Melbourne now, in a year's time. Who was going to remember? And when I was in Melbourne, I remember there were guys at the kollel there, 30 years, must have been 50, 60 light went through there, and 3 stayed, right? So it's like 50 people when they're there, it was like mamish, these guys, once they leave, this kimat no zeichen. Once in a while, I remember, Rabbi Zimbel did this, I remember Rabbi Marx did that, but otherwise, there's nothing there. So none of us should think that we're so essential to anything. Again, our mindset is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives me responsibilities to do what I'm supposed to do, and that motivates me. And in that sense, I have a very chosher thing to do, but I shouldn't think objectively that I'm so important that I'm indispensable. And then the last thing a person has to think about is that even though amongst the chevra here, I'm really chosher, and but then one day I have to go in front of the Melech Malchei Amlachim. I have to stand up in front of the Beis Din Shalmaila, and they're going to say, okay, you were very proud of yourself. Let's start talking about your mitzvahs and your averis. Let's start with Siman Aleph and Shulchan Aruch. Okay, Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Summit. Right? Was Hashem always in front of your eyes? Were you mis'abel on the Chorban? You go through the first few Simanim of Shulchan Aruch. You hope that the test upstairs, they don't start from Siman Aleph or Beis Gimel. Dalit Asher Yatzir, so maybe Let's take a cheshbon of all your Asher Yatzis in your life. We'll go through Shulchan Aruch and let's just see how this person is doing. Yuhaltzich is such a successful Jew. Let's see. Let's go through all the Asher Yatzis. Let's rate them on a scale of no kavana, or let's say missed opportunities, but one didn't say it. No kavana, somewhat kavana, excellent kavana. Right? Without the ability to go to the bathroom, we're all finished. Right? Dr. Mazur, you agree? We're all finished without the ability to go to the bathroom. Right? So it's an unbelievable chesed from Hashem. So a person lived 70, 80, 90, 100 years. How many times did you sincerely thank Hashem for the ability to relieve yourself? And Rabbi guy, I'm a successful Jew. Right? So those thoughts, you think about standing in front of the Beis Din Shalmaila, and the questions that are going to be asked, it's worthwhile to have the koyach hatzir, to actually think about that. That's enough right away to humble a person. That's the first thing I want you to think about. Where he came from, where he's going to go, and in front of who he's going to have to give the din v'cheshbon. Number 2 says in Mesillas Yesharim, called the Tmuras Chiluf Toldos Hazman V'Roiv Tmurasein. Right now, a person's in a Gavaldig Matzah, things are going great, but there are winds of change. Things can change like this. I'm so confident in my stance and what I'm doing. The more confident I am, if that ever changes, the more lowered I'm going to be, the more humble I'm going to have to be. So it's kedai, a little bit of anivus. A little bit, right now I'm very independent, I'm the one who's giving out the money. Chas v'shalom, one day, I might have to receive some of the chesed I'm giving. That thought that nothing is guaranteed should be enough to humble a person. That is number 2. Number 3 is the person has to realize that, it's similar to the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, the person has to realize that really my obligation in life is to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And if I think about my accomplishments in the context of what I'm obligated to do, it's also enough to humble oneself. I think if most of us, think about that, what percentage of the way there are we? If I would really think, what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu expect of me? And if I had to grade my abilities, my accomplishments in my life, in the past year, in the past month, in the past day, since we got up this morning, right? What grade would I give myself? Like I always tell my kids, they had you in the test, I'm not sure. No, you probably know. When you take a test, you can probably figure out, unless it's multiple choice and you're guessing. But if you write the answers, you should be able to pretty much anticipate your grade within a few points. So we can give ourselves a grade. We get to grade our shachars this morning. We can give our grade. So what grade? 95? 95. What grade would we give ourselves? That's enough. Again, not to depress us and to make us sad and but to realize that, okay, I'm going to approach life with a little more humbleness and realize, okay, I have a lot to grow, a lot to work on, and I start taking small steps. That's the way a Yid is supposed to think. The fourth idea, point of contemplation that will keep a person humble is a person realize the frailty of the human mind. Right? I'm so confident in my decision making, but he says that a person's says the Ramchal. Maybe others disagree with the Ramchal. Maybe some people living today in 2019 disagree with the Ramchal. But the Ramchal says that a person's mind, he's more prone to making a mistake on his own. I mean, if I don't take any advice from people, I'm more likely to make a mistake than to be mechavim to the end, than to realize the truth. If you come across anyone who is so confident in the decision-making process, they don't take advice from a person, stay far away from that person. Run away. Because the Ramchal says that every one of us is more prone to making mistakes than to achieving the end. So what does one do? One has to, he quotes the Mishnah Perkei Avos, Ezu Chacham Haloimin Mikol Adam. A person must be open to taking advice from other people, and not like-minded people. Because like-minded, if you go to your Hasidim, if you go to people who adore you, yes, of course they're going to tell you yes people. Of course that's the Netziv, the Ezer Kenegdoi. Rashi says if she's an Ezer, if he's Zoyfish an Ezer, then she's connected. It's up to Netziv, as my Shver said in my Chasna. That she's an Ezer, she helps you by being Kenegdoi. Just saying yes to whatever the husband wants is not a good thing. One has to always go to people who have different viewpoints, and then not mavat your das to them, but make a decision based on what they say. Those are the 4 points of contemplation. So we have the regilus, we have the habit that we have to create within ourselves to have humility, and the 4 points of contemplation, where I came from, where I'm going, who I'm going to give a din in front of. Things always change. My hatzlacha that I'm experiencing today is not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. My obligation to a Kadosh Baruch Hu and how fragile a person's seichel is, and how he's more prone to making mistakes. If one thinks about those things, it's enough to stop his arrogance, hopefully. What takes away from anivus? What detracts from anivus? Says the Mesillas Yesharim, Riboy hasviya b'toivus olam hazeh. When a person is fatif, when he's totally immersed in the oinig, the tainig of this world, pen toicha v'savata v'ram l'vavecha, says in Parshas Eikin. A person is going to eat, and he's going to become haughty, arrogant, vayishman Yeshurun vayivat. Yeshurun and Klal Yisrael get fat, and then they kick. As Rav Hirsch points out on that pasuk, he says that Yidden have been very successful in giving their lives for the religion. I mean, Mesiras Nefesh, literally, when there was a Shas Hashmad, Yidden have been very successful throughout the history. When it comes to the Nisayon of wealth, he says we have a horrible track record. The Nisayon, the trial of wealth, everything's going well, everything's great. The hardest cities to do kiruv in are the cities that have the most hatzlacha in Gashmis. There was once a guy in the Koil of Melbourne who came from Sydney. He was in St. Louis doing kiruv, then he went to Sydney, and then he came to Melbourne. He said Sydney was horrible from a kiruv perspective. It was very difficult because everything's geshmaki. Even doing well there, Bondi Beach. It's one of the most famous beaches in the world. People come from all over the world to surf. You ever gone there to surf? You know surf? So surfing in the Bondi Beach is like, everything is geshmak. The Gashmis is great. There's the harbor. Like, it's a wonderful, wonderful life. So I'm not missing anything. Right? There's a svius there. There's an unbelievable svius, and therefore it's a very difficult place to do kiruv. That's the first thing that takes away from anivas is the person who's fatifed in his olam hazeh. The second thing that takes away from anivas is miut hachachma. So he quotes a bunch of Ma'amar Chazal. He says, similar gasas haruach. What is a sign? A person who's haughty, who's arrogant, aniyus haTorah. If he's an amaretz, an ignorant person is going to be arrogant. If you see someone arrogant, you know he's ignorant. Someone who's arrogant about his ideas, his knowledge in Torah, we can guarantee you, says the Gemara, that he is ignorant. The Zohar says, siman de lo yod klum. You want a sign to see if a person doesn't know anything, shibuche. If he praises himself, that means he's foolish. It's a Zohar. The Zohar says, siman de lo yod klum shibuche. One who's very happy with himself and lets everyone know how great he is a foolish person. It's a siman that he's really foolish. Gemara in Bab Metzia, istera b'legena kish kish karya. If you have one coin in a pushka, in a box, and you shake it, it makes a lot of noise. There's only one coin. If it's full of coins and you shake it, it doesn't make that much noise. The very loud person who's always talking and always making sure everyone knows where he is, that's a siman. He has one coin in his tzedakah box. Only one thing. Kish kish. The Medrash Rabbi says, Shaul Ilan Israk. They asked the fruitless trees. A lot of the trees that make noise when the wind comes, an apple tree, the wind comes, doesn't make noise. An esser tree, they don't make noise, the fruit trees. The trees that make noise are the fruitless trees. So they asked the fruitless trees, why is your sound so loud, much louder than the fruit trees? Amru halavaya kalenu nishma v'nizacher. Halavai, that at least if our leaves and branches make noise, then somebody will remember us. The apple tree knows it has apples. Right? It will be remembered for the apples. Everyone's going to remember that what delicious apples come from it. The trees that have no offspring, there's no peiros, there's no fruit, they have to make a lot of noise to make sure they're remembered. So it's the quiet people. It's the people who are more reserved, more to the side, that those are the confident people. It's the people that are very loud and in your face. It shows there's not really much inside. That's what Chazal are saying. The third thing that detracts from anivas is, says the Mesillas Yesharim, his chabros or yishtamish b'nei adam chanefim. When a person surrounds himself by people who praise him, who laud him, right? So that leads to a false sense of what a person's abilities are, how he views himself. Because I only surround myself by those people who think I'm great. It's a good idea sometimes to go to the other side and hear what they're saying about you. Right? Because if you surround yourself with everyone who's on my team, of course they're going to praise me. I'm going to hear all these great shvach. That's 1 mile of being a rabbi. You never listen. This never happens to a rabbi. You never only hear the praise. You always get the... But some people, they always surround themselves by like-minded people. I've been involved in institutions where the board is always, they fill it with like-minded people. It's mamish poison for an institution. And they're not matzliach at these places. It's always like-minded people. Right? So the head wants to make sure that everything he wants gets pushed through. So he takes people who knows are his puppets, surrounds himself with them. Everything's democratic society here. This is what these people, they represent the institution, and this is what they want. It's the easy way out. That definitely makes life easier, but it's not a way to achieve success. And that's mafsidi hanivus is someone who surrounds himself with like-minded people. Those are the 3 things that detract from anivus. So it says the Mesillas Yesharim, one must be more careful with the friends he chooses than the food he puts in his mouth. That's what he says. The Lashon is, he wants to be more careful with people he wants to bring close to him as friends, as advisors, more that he's going to be involved, he's going to ayn into his Meichel and Mishteh. If a person has, he's talking about unhealthy food. A person eats unhealthy food, right? So then it's going to damage his body. But his friends, the people that he puts in charge of things, different positions, they can ruin him. They can ruin himself, they can ruin his honor and everything. So those are the things to be careful of. So the habit, the contemplation, and the staying away from these things that are masvia, the indulgence in olam hazeh, realizing that if I think I'm arrogant, that shows that I'm ignorant, and obviously not having only connection to people who like you, but appointing advisors, people who aren't necessarily, don't see eye to eye with you. So our project for this week will be maybe to take one physical action, have in mind, intentionally, one physical action I'll do that will try to create that habit of anivus, and I'll contemplate one of these points, one of these 4 points that will hopefully help us stay at the level of anivus that we should be having.